ethnophonic, po folks, ethnophonic, po folks, bumping, bomb blasting repertoires of B flat and conjure, bumping, ethnophonic, ethnophonic, bumping, snake finger tempos into calisthenic wah-wahs, bumping, emancipated jelly rolls of clarinet and grandeur, bumping, high and mighty high, gree gone crazy, bumping, casting neck bone elations, bumping, high and mighty high, 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 gree gone crazy, bumping, gone crazy, bumping, casting neck bone elations, bumping, making Elysian spells out of old born banjos and whole note Haitians, old born banjos and whole note Haitians, bumping, opening windows, bumping, onto haywire boogaloo's, bumping, haywire boogaloo's, bumping, haywire boogaloo's, bumping, clashing voices, bumping, clashing voices with the stomping of some heavy storm, bumping, walking, walking into birdland, in the key of Congo Square, bumping, feeling mighty fine, bumping, feeling mighty fine, bumping, feeling mighty fine, bumping, ethnophonic, po folks, poor folks, bumping, walking Joplin to the freedom sign, bumping. Thank you all so much for coming out, and give another big hand for Ross, Shay, and the band, Keith and Bill Cole. It's so good to hear real fresh jazz here in Vermont. If I had been visiting like I first did 14 years ago when I moved to Vermont, if I had been walking down the street and saw that, I'd be like, okay, I'm moving here. So thanks so much to Anne for providing such a wonderful space. And please keep coming out, keep this going. This next piece I'm going to do, and just so everyone knows, so this is not a saxophone. It's about 80 pounds heavier. I hope this doesn't make me a hunchback 10 years from now. But this is alto contra alto clarinet, which is the second lowest of the clarinets. As a San Franciscan, I could tell, I'm a San Franciscan, so as a San Franciscan, I could tell a joke about the love of big things, but I won't go into that. But yeah, I definitely love this instrument. So this next piece I'm going to do is called Like Alice in the Garden of a Satchidananda Dream. Yes, I love it. Thank you so much. Didn't even have to explain. Green, 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 green as the day, green, green as the day, green as the day before Columbus, green, 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 green as the day before Columbus, like Perseids in perpetuity, green as hallelujahs in bloom, the orishas of our fruition shall conjure beyond known bounds of comprehension. Like melodies and receptivity, green as galaxies in profusion, like orbs of Dolphy in connectivity, ours is a Dogon cosmology in defiance of all colonization, leaping skies in seeds of wizardry. We are that crystalline dignity, impervious to monoscopic conclusions, shifting the consciousness, shifting the consciousness, shifting the consciousness like emissaries in perpetuity, 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 like the Afronicity of Obatala on a far northern street, like the frontiers of infinity, shifting the consciousness, shifting the consciousness. shifting the consciousness, shifting the consciousness like Alice in the garden of a Satchidananda dream, leaping whole categories. We are green as galaxies in profusion, shifting the consciousness, shifting the consciousness, shifting the consciousness like Alice in a Satchidananda dream. This next poem is called Props to the People. Inspired by all of our struggles to see justice, attain justice, live a day without racism, get through hate. Props to the people. Jack B, 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 nimble, nimble, Jack B, nimble, nimble, Jack B, Jack B, Jack B, hit by the fist of the U.S. government. Jack B, Jack B, Jack B trying to stagger to his feet. Jack B, Jack B, Jack B, just another brother trying to make ends meet. Jack B, beaten, 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 till the freedom bleeds. Beaten, 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 till the freedom bleeds, bleeds, bleeds. Jack B, Jack B, Jack B, the people marching in the streets. Jack B, Jack B, Jack B, what history calls peace over my dead, over my dead, over my dead, over my dead body. Jack B, what history calls peace over my dead body. Jack B, nimble. Jack B, nimble, nimble as a riot. Jack B, nimble as a riot. Not come to hide, but to seek. Jack B the dribble, Jack B the dribble, Jack B the dribble to cause this whole ship to sink. Jack B nimble as a riot, not come to hide, but to seek. Jack B, the people, people marching 6 feet deep. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you. It's always interesting to contemplate revolution at a funeral. This next piece is called Cosmographies in Bloom. Down a song flowing north amid the boreal wilderness of innermost transformation. Down a song flowing north amid the boreal wilderness of innermost transformation, appears the realm of the soul-rising mountains, of the moon at dawn. Obliged by the gods, down a song of stars and coniferous splendor, greens the calling of reaches higher, higher, greens the calling of reaches higher than our shadows can modernly conceive. Down a song flowing north rises the dawnland of illuminations, welcoming the innermost of elevations, innermost of elevations, innermost of elevations, to passages of expansions duly received. Behold, such noble means of galaxies' introspection. Behold, such noble means of galactic introspection. Behold, each peak surrounding each surrounding peak upon peak upon peak. Behold, each bewitching reach. Behold, this ascension of irrepressible peace. Behold your emancipation from all dominions otherwise. For here is where your unconquerable wilderness glistens in the liberty your passion calls home. Welcoming all illuminations to the dawnland, incandescence of innermost reclamations, unshackling the sages from the ages, long now blazing and found. Down this song, flowing north amid the boreal chicories, lining the cosmos from the astral floor, appears the realm of the soul-rising mountains, of the moon at dawn. Obliged by the gods of blossoming cosmographies, blossoming cosmographies, blossoming cosmographies. Behold, behold, behold this land your passion calls home. Thank you. One of the, I get so much energy from the land here in Vermont, from the mountains, the waters, and just the land itself. And one of the things that I felt the first time I visited Vermont, taking the train up from 30th Street Station in Philadelphia and going from Philly to this incredible garden of Vermont. And one of the things that I immediately felt and still feel is the weight, the sweat, blood, and the joy of all of my ancestors who walked from the South through here for freedom. And as we can all tell, if anyone's ever looked at the demographics of Vermont, they didn't stay. I don't think they were quite that welcome. You know, it was kind of like closing time at a bar. You know, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. And I think that was definitely the message that those early Africans received when they crossed into Vermont on the way to Canada. But I feel their spirits constantly here. It really connects me to this land. So every time some Vermonter chooses to challenge my belonging here, I remind them that my belonging goes deep. But, so I think of this poem as something that I would greet those formerly enslaved people with when they arrived here. So, okay. All right. I'm going to do a poem called Out in My Yard. You know, I love how when I read my poetry, I intentionally never develop a set. I kind of select the poems as I go, and it's kind of like inviting really good friends over for dinner, or one really good friend over for dinner, and you're like, well, I'm going to give you some of this, and I'm going to give you some of this. So, all right, so this next poem is called Out in My Yard. And I wrote this several years ago. I was living in Maine, and in a tiny 8x10 cabin, completely off the grid. There was a beautiful cabin that was kind of built like a tower, up high on a hillside. And it was definitely my sanctuary for the time being, but given the refusal, similar to here in Vermont, but given the refusal there for employers to hire Black people, I was very broke for an extended time, and so yeah, I ended up writing. I was sitting out on it was a tiny little deck, a little porch, and it was a beautiful starry night. In between the trees, you know, there was like this much sky in between all the trees. But I looked up and I saw all those stars, and stars in the sky have always been an expansion of freedom for me and comfort, and just as it's been since the beginning of time for all of us. But I think maybe since I grew up in San Francisco, you know, with all the light pollution, I definitely appreciate seeing the stars here. But I was looking up at the stars while I was sitting on my deck of this tiny little cabin, and I suddenly realized I've got a whole bunch of stars. You know, I got all those stars. So this is called Out in My Yard. Is poverty familiar to anyone here? Wow. Might want to check it out sometime. Okay. So this is called Out in My Yard. And I just want to let everybody know, I know this is New England, and there's a certain reservation. But before the show tonight, I got in touch with the New England Puritanical Society. And I asked for Ben Franklin, but he wasn't there. And I asked if they could grant you all permission to respond. And they said yes. So, and that was a joke. You know, I sometimes wonder how stand-up comedians make it in Vermont. Like, it's a new era of silence. But yes, feel free to, you know, it's call and response. Feel free to respond. So this is called Out in My Yard. I love my stars. Out where I live, out where I live, out where I live, out where I live, I ain't got but 1/100th of an acre. But I got 85,263 stars. I've got so many stars, ain't no fence big enough to keep 'em. I love my stars. Sometimes I'll walk a mile in the sky just to see each and every one of them. If I ain't got but a middle of a spittle, I'll be damned if I ain't got 85,263 stars, all shining brighter, brighter, all shining brighter than a dime in redemption. I love my stars. Ain't but a yard full of the universe, ain't but a yard full. I love my stars. Ain't but a yard full, ain't but a yard full of the universe. I love my stars, just as pretty as a bowl full of bliss. I can't wait for the day when I have roadies that do this for me.
We got that one.
Yeah. I think that's why I wore out all my old boyfriends. I'm like, come on. Okay, so this next poem I'm going to do is called Shinings of the Drum. I wrote this a long time ago, kind of tying up the African diaspora, from Haiti to New Orleans, Savannah, and several other places. When I was 19, I grew up in a household that was very black and proud, and my mother raised me from first grade, learning about African history and African American history and the Caribbean and the whole diaspora and all the arts and poetry. And I was so enamored with the diaspora that when I was 19, I decided I was moving to Haiti, and scared my mother to death and family, but it was a calling. It was a definite calling. I'm not Christian. I can't speak to what it's like to be called to preach, be a preacher, but I can definitely speak to this experience, this deep ancestral voodoo-esque experience, being a very deep calling. And as I am of African descent, I consider, and the diaspora is endless. It's like wherever we go, wherever we end up going. So wherever I am is part of the diaspora. So that means that Vermont is part of the diaspora. Okay, this is called Shinings of the Drum. When the moon becomes the sun. When the moon becomes the sun, I am the high-feathered reclaimer of Ouida. Via the port of Savannah and the waters of Bahia, of Cap Haïtien and of Bayou Saint-Jean. When the moon becomes the sun, I am the high-feathered scribe of Guédé, making mambo with our clothes off, shaking our graves and taking note. When the moon becomes the sun, well between the thighs of death and life, I am the listener and I am the voice. I am the listener and I am the voice. I am the high-feathered seeds of jazz fleeing from our trials. When the moon becomes the sun, when the moon becomes the sun, beyond the fog of our implied assimilation, I am the whispers of Dunbar Creek. I am the high-feathered horns of the Black Star Liner. When the moon becomes the sun, when the moon becomes the sun, I am the drum of imminent reclamations. I am the call of the unknown maroon. I am the high-feathered calypso of a marching black mob. When the moon becomes the sun, I am the ascension of ancient melodies. I am the chimes of hurricane blessings. I am the listening of our dreams. When the moon becomes the sun, I am the victory of 16 cowrie shells. I am the Benin palace of Madame Erzulie. I am the shining, I am the shining. I am the shining of a well-seen voice. When the moon becomes the sun, I am the votive envoy of La Place Guinée. I am the call of the unknown maroon. I am the high-feathered calypso of Ogun Batala. When the moon becomes the sun, when the moon becomes the sun, I am the shining, I am the shining, I am the listening of Dunbar Creek. Thank you. And just to give you some background, I feel like I'm black-splaining in contrast to white-splaining, but just some background. I don't know if it's a commonly known story, but sometime after 1865, after the supposed end of slavery, there was a ship that showed up just outside of Savannah, a slave ship, and it went from the Atlantic up into this creek, Dunbar Creek. And the people on that boat, knowing that they were about to be enslaved, massacred, brutalized, they decided to jump ship And the story goes, as it's been handed down through generations, is that they formed a circle on the boat. Well, before they did this, they quickly slaughtered the ship captain and you know, all the white people on the boat. And they formed a circle and they flew off in the air and they flew back to Africa. And when I was a kid, when I right here, like the gospel song, "I'll Fly Away," I always thought of that. But another theory is that they just leapt to their deaths. Either way, they did not reach slavery. And so that's what that's talking about, hearing the whispers of Dunbar Creek. It's an interesting story. If you Google it, there's a page on it. Okay, this next poem I'm going to do is called "In Pots, Big as Human Dignity." Okay. I had the honor of doing this poem at the State House. You know, when you're a black man living in Vermont and you deal with all of the daily atrocities of racism, you know, being pulled over by cops, not being served in a store, or, you know, any of the countless so-called microaggressions. I think they're much bigger than micro. When you suddenly find yourself speaking at the State House, it's kind of a twisted honor. You know, it's like being able to kind of raise your shoulders high in the big house, big plantation house. But I was really honored to be able to do this poem. In pots, big as human dignity. Once upon a time, there will be this thing called freedom. Once upon a time, there will be this thing called freedom. Oh, if I could only show you the view from there. Liberation for as far as your soul can see. We'll all be loving all the love we please once upon a time. There will be this thing called freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, freedom. Oh, if I could only show you the view from there. Once upon a time, there will be this thing called freedom. By this point, folks will have consciously obliterated all forms of bigotry a long, long time ago. No presumption of supremacy shall ever be allowed there. Once upon a time, there will be this thing called freedom. We will know this to be true because we have always known this to be true. As is the artistry of the horn of the moon, the handiwork of our liberation shall be painted clear across our lives in all the spectral hues of translucent transformation, transcendentally raising all ascendant affirmations. Once upon a time, there will be this thing called freedom, 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 liberation for as far as your soul can see. In pots big as human dignity, folks will be cooking up radicalizations of things that today we couldn't even think to believe. I'm going to say that again. In pots big as human dignity, folks will be cooking up radicalizations of things that today we couldn't even think to believe. There will be jazz and beats of people dancing in the streets. Folks will be so free. Folks will be so free. Folks will be so free, won't nobody remember any other way to be. Oh, if I could only show you the view from there. Wait for us all to get there. Right, I'm going to do a few more. This next poem is called Just One Bowl of Love. And I wrote this a few days before Mother's Day, that first year of COVID, when everything was shut down, locked down, flights and everything. And honestly, when that first shutdown happened, I was so happy. It was like, oh my God, like I can stay home and write poems all day, play my horn, compose the next great piece, take walks in the woods. I'm like, hallelujah. And I really did love it, and I really did take full advantage of that time. But I had planned before COVID that spring to spend Mother's Day with my mother. And everything was shut down, so I wasn't able to go. So I wrote her this poem. And, when you have a poet for a child, I've written her dozens and dozens of poems. But this is one I appreciate, and it's called Just One Bowl of Love. And a little bit of background. My mother raised me and my brother in the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm 64, so she raised us through the 60s and the 70s with all the activism that was going on at the time. The Black Panthers were on our block. The Black Panthers were parents of friends of mine, and that the activism was very real and very, very much there. Maya Angelou was there, Toussaint St was there, it was all going on. Harvey Milk was there. Anyhow, don't mean to gloat. Sorry, I really don't. And that was a long time ago. And unfortunately, the Panthers aren't on the corner anymore. But my mother was very pivotal in helping a lot of people through those years. So this is called Just One Bowl of Love. My mother, having raised an entire revolution, my mother makes a whole loaf of freedom from a bowl of access denied. my mother takes a spoonful of sugar and a handful of courage and sees to the horizons of boundless generations. With the taste of sweet potato pie and a generous amount of divine seasoning, my mother has sweetened the courage of every step I take forward. My mother can nourish the consciousness of the entire table from just one bowl of love. My mother can nourish the consciousness of the entire table from just one bowl of love. My mother makes the whole world so much more livable, knowing full well I love her more than a mere quarantine of miles can ever tell. I love my mother. My mother's 87 now and doing very well. And in the spring, will be moving here with me in Vermont. So definitely. All right, I'm just going to do a couple more. You know, poets, we can't get off the stage. But thank all of you so much for